Thank you. I'm so excited about this. I read a while back that these people wanted to start a progressive school in South Orange, and I thought that is such a great idea. And it's an idea I always sort of had. I always sort of had this dream that, like, I think I could do something here that people in this community would really want, and they would really want their kids to be a part of. And so getting involved in this, it really is, it's such a tremendous honor, and I'm so excited, and really just can't wait to really dive in. I moved to Maplewood from Brooklyn, like most of us, about 13 years ago. My oldest son is 12. He goes to South Orange Middle School. And then my next son goes to Clinton. He's 10. And then I have my final two sons are about to turn 4, and they go to the school where I'm the director now, which is, it's really wonderful to have them there, because I can really get a sense of the curriculum as the director and as someone who works with the teachers really closely, and as a parent. So I see what they come home with, and I see what they're retaining and what they're processing and really loving. And that I've learned so much just from that experience alone of having children, you know, a part of the school that I'm at. So we had an event yesterday where we met some parents at the park, and the question I asked almost all the parents I talked to was, what are you looking for in a school? And what do you want that's different from your child's current school situation? And sort of overwhelmingly, what I kept hearing over and over again was people want academic rigor, and they want a close community and an individualized approach, and that sort of, you know, cozy feel that I think people get a lot of times at their kids' preschool, and then lose, right, when their children enter these really large sort of top-down institutions. So that's what I want to talk about tonight, is what does academic rigor really look like under the progressive umbrella, and what does really good social emotional support look like when we're talking about kids spanning, you know, K through 5. So I'm going to try to share my screen here, and tell me if this works. Yes? Okay. All right. So progressive education. Oh, let me back up for a second. So the academic terms we're going to discuss tonight are constructivism, inquiry-based learning, and the project approach. And we're going to talk about these theories in pretty general terms, what they mean, and then we're going to delve into specific subject areas and talk about the application and what it actually looks like in a classroom. So progressive education basically means that it gives more value to experience than formal learning. So unlike earlier models of education, which relied on rote learning and authoritarianism, this model came along that said students really need to be invested in what they're learning about, and it needs to really give value to experience. So under the progressive umbrella, we have constructivism. And in very basic terms, this essentially means that learners construct knowledge rather than just sort of passively taking in information. So as children experience the world and as they reflect on their experiences, they start to incorporate new information into their existing knowledge. So this approach assumes that we believe that kids come into the classroom with a wide wealth of knowledge and questions, and it's our job to facilitate learning that's in response to that knowledge and those questions. So inquiry-based learning is where children are seeking answers to their questions via research and direct observation. So children have a big question that they want answered. Rather than answering it, the teacher facilitates a process that helps them learn how to research. So it's a much richer way of gathering information. You're not only getting the answer, but you're learning, oh, this is how people figure things out, right? So for young children, it's kind of teaching them how to think and giving them opportunities to think and to really be creative in their research. What I also really love about this approach is the teachers are facilitators of learning. They don't see the kids as coming into the classroom sort of these empty vessels and it's my job to fill you up with this information that you're going to then parrot back to me. It's really the educator's role to meet students where they are, right? So you have to really have a close relationship with your kids and really get to know them and then help them develop and realize their potential through that process. So through this approach, children really develop in the broadest sense. They learn to understand themselves more deeply. They learn to make meaning of the world around them. And they really begin to build courage and confidence to think independently and creatively. So the project approach also sort of falls under this umbrella, and it's essentially an in-depth exploration of a topic that can be teacher or child initiated, and projects can be short or long-term depending on the questions and the level of the child's interest. And what differentiates a project approach from an inquiry one is that within the project approach, there's an emphasis on the creation of a certain outcome. So this could be a spoken report. This could be a multimedia presentation, a poster, a demonstration, a display. It can be any number of things. And often that's decided together with the children and the teacher. So this is also a place where arts integration can really come into the curriculum. So under the progressive umbrella also, there's a real place for education that focuses on social justice and advocacy. So in developmentally appropriate ways, children can really explore aspects of their own identity, including their race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, religion, gender, sexual orientation, and ability and learning styles. So we really want children to become advocates for social justice and allies in an inclusive community. So how do we do this? From the start, we really make clear that we focus on and we value sharing and friendships. We talk about the same versus different and responsibility and fairness and inclusiveness. And we learn how racial identity and gender identity and learning differences and family structure are a part of our everyday lives. So through books and conversation and classroom guests and music and current events, we really can empower children to be advocates for themselves through the discovery of their own identity. So these are the educational philosophies that we really want to embrace. And now we're going to delve a little bit more deeply into specific subject areas and talk about what this actually looks like in the classroom. So we'll start with literacy. In the younger grades, curriculum begins to focus on literacy skills. And there are so many ways to support literacy development every day. This includes language, reading and writing activities. And children can certainly learn through classroom instruction, but also through real-time application. So Lessons include foundational concepts like letters, syllables, words, and sentences, but then this is really enriched with rhymes, with stories, with games, with activities, and read aloud stories need to be an essential part of every day. Children need to be exposed to books from various genres and formats, and really need to be prompted to make connections with the characters and with the subjects. So as kids enter the upper elementary years, that's where the language arts curriculum begins to really focus on building a community of readers. So this is where teachers and kids can work together to build the classroom library, where novels and poetry and picture books and informational texts are read out loud. Students choose books for independent reading, and the core focus of their library use is really on nurturing a love of reading for reading's sake. Student-led book groups have a really strong place here. This is where they can really build on reading comprehension and also to focus on strategies for really rich conversations about literature. Writing is a really important part of a literacy curriculum. In the younger elementary years, children need to be encouraged to begin handwriting and writing words as they sound. This is something I say to parents over and over and over again: please don't spell words for your children. We really want them to find their own motivation and to feel encouraged to try. So you say, write what you hear. And this is an example of really, really important risk-taking for children. If they are able to take these academic risks when they're young, they're not going to feel stuck on spelling when they get older. So if they want to say, they're writing a story and they want to say, the house is enormous, if they're scared to spell it wrong, they're going to write the house is big, because it's more important to them to be right than to be really expressive in their writing. So we really want to encourage, it's sometimes called inventive spelling or sound spelling, and we just really want to encourage this risk-taking in the younger elementary years. In the older elementary years, writing is most meaningful when it's done for really authentic purposes. So we want a writing program that includes responding to literature, writing to document and explore personal experiences and ideas, short and long-term creative writing projects. In the older elementary grades, children will also be given regular lessons on genres of writing, on editing, the mechanics of writing, including grammar, punctuation, capitalization, and the parts of speech. Other components at this older age now does include spelling, word games and challenges, poetry appreciation, poetry writing, handwriting practice. So all of these lessons and activities really contribute to each student's sets of writing skills and experiences. So the two primary goals for students in writing are for them to develop personal connections to writing and to demonstrate, as they grow older, an increasingly sophisticated ability to use and manipulate written language. Another really important piece of a literacy program is speaking. Clear, effective verbal communication is really critical to a student's success, both in and out of the classroom. So children need to practice presenting their work, including stories, opinions, and reports on a regular basis. They'll participate in discussions by sharing their ideas, relating their experiences to the topic at hand, and building on a previously offered concept and referring to source materials to support their viewpoints and their arguments. So let's move from literacy over to math. We want math lessons to come from a variety of hands-on curricula, which use techniques that teach children to understand math concepts. So they're ultimately provided with a deeper mathematical knowledge than curricula that stress formulas and rote memorization. One of the people I was chatting with yesterday, I was telling her that I actually went to a progressive school when I was young, and I graduated really knowing how to write, really having what I think of as very sort of strong foundation in terms of, history and current events and social justice and literature. But I did not come away with really strong math skills. And I think it's because of the way math used to be taught when we were growing up. It really was very formulaic. It was about rote memorization and learning sort of order of operations, and then that's that, right? So my mind was kind of blown when I got to graduate school and started taking math for teachers classes and learning this new way that we're teaching kids math, where kids are now really understanding value and they're understanding what numbers mean. And I think we're going to have this whole generation of kids that don't feel maybe the way some of us felt about our math classes growing up. So for the lower elementary grades, we definitely want math to be a combination of exploration, games, activities, written practice, conversations. Students can learn new math concepts with the use of math manipulatives and other items that they can move around and touch. They develop their own understanding of mathematics using their own experiences. When they're ready, the teacher can move them from abstract expression through written numbers and symbols. Some concepts can really come a lot more into an integrated curriculum, like money and measuring, which are going to be taught, but they're also going to be part of science and social studies units. So for older elementary kids, the transition from concrete to abstract thinking is really growing. So over these years, children can really begin to study number sense and place value, logic, geometry, probability, early algebra, measurement, and of course the four operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So the most important element in the success of young students in mathematics is that they remain excited, inquisitive about, and interested in what they are learning. So it's so interesting that we actually have real research now that tells us that how students feel about mathematics has everything to do with their success. So as educators, our goal is that students achieve mastery and understanding and also maintain their curiosity and their love of learning. In addition, there are really cool age-appropriate activities that include the history of mathematics and logic and games and puzzles. And children will be encouraged to use mathematical skills and knowledge for art projects and also culminating projects in other subject areas. So, science. For younger children, a science curriculum should be largely based on observation and discovery. We want to balance research with a lot of hands-on experiments. We want children to really engage with their experiences with the natural and physical world around us. As kids get older, science is made up of strands such as life science, earth science, chemistry, and physics, but it's also a mode of investigating and exploring. So we'll emphasize hands-on activities and experiential learning so that whenever possible, children can construct their understanding of a subject by working with it. So what does that mean exactly? Let's say we're going to study magnetism. We could say, okay, here's what happens, here's how it works. We could read an article about it. Or we could ask the kids to perform a series of experiments with magnets and metals and electricity, and then draw conclusions from their own results. So in a science curriculum, the primary goals are the demonstration of an increasingly sophisticated understanding of the methodology of science and the demonstration of a strong understanding of the concepts that they're studying. So it's the process of learning and it's the actual concepts that they're learning about. Okay, so the next subject is social studies. The overall goal of a social studies curriculum is to help children gain knowledge and cultural understanding of our own country, as well as a sense of the world at large. So this needs to start out as close to the child as possible and build out as they get older. So for the younger children, this might look like a study on communities and neighborhoods, because that's really relevant to their lives. It's something that they have direct experience with. And as we said before, their thinking is more in the concrete stage still. So we want the curriculum to really reflect their developmental stage. So we might ask, how are we connected? In what ways do we depend on one another? And what impact do I have on my community? And this can begin by delving deeply into the classroom community and then expand its focus into the larger community. First, exploring the neighborhood right outside our door. This is where our location in the center of South Orange is what I think of as an extraordinary learning opportunity. The children can really study how neighborhoods function. They can explore the lives of the people who live and work in the neighborhood through trips and meetings and book research and interviews. Students can really explore the diversity of the people and the streets in South Orange. Social studies in the older grades contains within it history, anthropology, geography, civics, citizenship, but it's also a framework for considering the relationship individuals have to communities and nations, as well as the relationship in those communities and nations have to each other. So in terms of teaching the material, our approach will be to provide as many entry points for understanding as possible. And this is something that I think is so often missing in classrooms, to stay on a subject long enough so that students can really get into it at great depth. So our primary goals for students in social studies are to demonstrate a detailed understanding of the periods we study. So this could be New Jersey history, American history, ancient cultures, and to show that they are then able to extrapolate from what they've learned and to have them engage with other members of their community inside and outside the school in positive and meaningful ways. So the final piece of curriculum I want to talk about is social emotional learning. Emotions play a huge part in learning. In order to take in new concepts, students have to be open, they have to trust their environment, their peers, their teachers. And we want to provide this by working really intensively with children on group and individual interactions and striving to create a climate of mutual respect. So to me, mutual respect starts at the top. It starts with the teachers feeling like their ideas, their thoughts, their interactions are being seen with respect. And then how does that extend to the children? How do we show kids that we respect their artwork, their ideas, their feelings, their thoughts, and their interactions with each other? This is probably what I think of this social emotional learning as just a real essential part of an overall curriculum. Those of us who've studied development and education know that the greatest cognitive growth occurs through social interaction. So this starts with morning meeting, where children greet each other. They might learn about the schedule of the day and special events. They might play some cooperative games and share thoughts and information about their lives. This sharing that happens in morning meeting really becomes quite intimate and vulnerable as the year progresses, and as the children get to know each other better and start to feel safer and start to sort of find their voice. And this impacts a school climate more than anything else I've seen, is this level of trust that develops when there's encouragement for this kind of relationship, and that real time is spent on this. So I would like a staff that really understands how to pay special attention to teaching the youngest children positive social skills within the context of daily routines and activities, and who understands how to really carefully attend to how children treat each other and reinforce respect and caring as the basis for interactions. I think that when adults demonstrate their belief in children's potential for competence and goodness, the children feel more empathy for and interest in each other. As children move through the elementary years, we want to place a great deal of focus on the social curriculum, knowing that it goes hand in hand with the academic subjects we teach. So for older kids, this looks like having class meetings where we gather in small groups or as a whole group to share news or talk about what's going on. This sharing creates really strong connections, but also really teaches children the importance of sharing with other people and listening. One thing I tell my children all the time is that life is so much richer and so much easier when you share your feelings with other people, that we can't stop life from happening, but these connections with other people are what get us through hard times, and what help us with the joyful times to feel it even more deeply. So a school culture that really teaches young kids that there is no shame in sharing and connecting and being open about how you feel, and having that be a really safe environment becomes a really sort of extraordinary place for learning and for connection. This also might look like students helping to create the classroom rules so they can identify the parameters they need in order to do their best learning. We will use collaborative problem solving, restorative practices to work through issues as they arise. And throughout the school year, we can do community building activities. Kids can have classroom responsibilities. They can do community service within the school, such as reading to younger students and helping to keep the school clean, or off campus, such as having a day we go pick up litter on South Orange Avenue. We want to talk about building caring relationships, what it means to be a friend, to be an ally. In order to foster inclusion and respect, we want children to share about themselves and their backgrounds and their cultures. And by teaching social and emotional skills such as cooperation, responsibility, and empathy, we help our students succeed academically and socially. Thank you.